What's going on, YouTube Gardener? It's your boy Sydney and
Tori
from the Naked Gardener channel. In this video, we're going to talk to you about what plants you can grow in May for 2020. Now, we've been getting a lot of followers for first-time gardeners that's grown in apartment, containers, and in-ground, and they've been asking us what plants can they grow for their zone. So in this video, we're just going to basically cover everything that you can grow direct sow into either a container or in the ground or a raised bed. So let's get growing. All right, before we get into growing and direct sowing everything for May, you want to make sure your soil is roughly about 65 degrees. And you can just get a regular old meat thermometer, stick it into the ground about like 3 inches and wait for about at least a minute till it gets that right setting. Once again, anywhere between the 50-65 range degree, you want to have it at least about 65 to get a good germination rate on there. Once it does, you'll be able to direct sow everything. Now we're going to cover, Mrs. Naked Gardener is going to cover the flowers. We're going to both do the plants, and then she's going to finish off with herbs. So what are the flowers? Well, you can basically grow any flowers almost any flowers right now, but what flowers would you suggest growing right now?
Well, my all-time favorite are sunflowers. Like, that's really my go-to. I have such joy in the sunflowers. There's so many different varieties. Marigolds, that's something that we use for pest control. I'm particularly very fond of the key lime this year. It was my first year. And I think that that's going to be a staple for me in the garden. Zinnias, we like to have those. They're great pollinators. I'm trying to think. A calendula, that's another one that you can use in salves and all types of things. Yeah, and tinctures. I'm trying to think. Lavender is considered a herb, but you know, some people, to them it's a flower, but it's something that's usable. A medicinal flower that I really love is borage. It's delicious. It tastes like cucumber. It is kind of invasive, so it is best for a container. That would be my advice on that. I'm probably missing some, so if there's, you know, particular ones that you're fans of, comment down below. I want to hear some of your favorites, but those are my go-to flowers.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about plants, and we're going to start with the nightshades. The nightshades are going to basically be your tomatoes, your eggplants, okra, and your peppers. Now with tomatoes, they have 3 types of tomatoes. I normally just only go by the 2 types. Your indeterminate, which means they grow an infinite size, either from anywhere from a 7-foot almost up to 15-foot tall. And then you have your determinate size tomatoes. Now those are at a certain height. They only grow anywhere from 3 feet to 5 feet. Now with your determinate size, which are going to be like your patio type tomatoes or your dwarf indeterminate tomatoes, those, once they produce all their fruit, they just die off. So you want, if you're good into those type of tomatoes, especially if you're in an apartment, you want to grow those in succession, almost like every 2 to 3 weeks. With the indeterminate, they just keep on producing all season long till the frost hits them. So those are the type of tomatoes that you want to be looking for. If you're in the patio, if you're in the apartment style or growing in small containers off of your balcony, you want to look for either a patio, dwarf indeterminate, or a determinate tomato. Then we have peppers. We got pepper. You got your mild peppers and your hot peppers and your very spicy peppers, and those can just basically grow into your frost. Now, if you're in a zone like us, you can harden those off and store those inside, and then let them grow back again once springtime comes around, and you get supposed to get a better yield off of there because they're considered a perennial, which means they continue to grow year after year. So this is going to be our first year doing perennials for our pepper, especially ones that produce very well, like what was it, the Purple Beauty that was
Yes, oh, it was so productive. The shishitos.
the shishito peppers.
They were popping.
And now even if y'all watched our garden tour, we'll put the description of the video down below. But now even our jalapenos are doing very well.
They're doing really well.
Because we didn't have very good luck with them last year. Matter of fact, we didn't even grow
We
much.
kind of ignored them last year, and I was so mad about it.
Yeah, because we were just trying to grow almost
I want to
everything.
try different things.
Yeah, so we just missed that bus on that one. The next one is your eggplants. Now, with your eggplants, they come in different sizes, different shapes, and different kinds. The most common one are the eggplant beauties. We like to try to do, I think there's
The striped one.
the striped one, the Ichiban,
The
is
Endine.
the Endine. I mean, there's so many of those that you can grow.
And those little white ones, we did not get any to germinate this year.
Yeah, those were just hard to do for us, but those are some of the ones that you can grow direct sow in there. Then you have your okra. Now with okra, they can basically grow almost any type of soil, and they're very drought tolerant, and they produce like crazy. In our containers, we grew them last year, and in Pop's garden, we grew them in his raised beds, and they were just, you have to watch them. You almost have to check them every day because one day they can be this small, and then you wake up in the morning and they could be almost that big. So
Don't let them get more than 6 inches.
yeah, you don't want to get them. I would say anywhere from 4 to 6 inches is the perfect size for okra, especially if you're going to be pickling them. One of my nieces, she's been dying for us to make her some pickled okra, so we're going to be doing a lot of okra this year, so be prepared for some of these recipes that we're going to be coming out with.
I plan on being pretty successful with the okra, and this year I didn't do so well with doing starts indoors. I've had more success with like kind of direct sowing it outdoors this year with the okra so far.
Yeah, and all of these you can grow in apartment in containers, so if you're interested about growing these, look for that. The next one is cukes, or what we call cucumbers. Now you have different types of, you have your slicers, your pickling. I mean, there's just so many different
Bush and then vine.
Yeah, there's so many different types of pickled cucumbers that you can grow. Now, if you're in apartment life or only have a small space, there is what we found this year is a bush variety cucumber. Actually, we grew those one time in Pop's garden, and they were very massive.
Yeah, we couldn't keep up with them.
We were just taking them
He had
off
like
of there.
huge ones that he just didn't even see.
Yeah, and so you got to be mindful of that. Or if you have the space, you can put them use them on a trellis, and they can grow up a trellis for you. But
today I was watching Grow Family Network. They're another channel, great channel. They did something on some cucumbers with some bush ones, some vine ones, and I was pretty impressed with their setup.
Yeah, we'll put the link to their channel down below for y'all to go if y'all interested in growing cucumbers, how they are growing their cucumbers. The next one will be zucchinis or squashes. Now, there are some bush variety of zucchinis and squashes. You have to look for the title on there that will say a certain bush or certain type of squash that you have. I think we're trying to grow a butternut squash one and an acorn.
We have
squash.
lemon squash. We
Yeah.
have scallop squash. Some gray zucchini, which like was I direct sowed that, and it just like every day it's bigger.
I think that one's probably the best, healthiest one out of them, all of them. Now, the ones that's growing a lot of yield so far are those acorn ones,
Oh, the scallop.
yeah, the scallop ones.
Squash.
And we got those, Robin from Big Bear Homestead told us about that. They have a great yield on there. So, and she was right. I mean, they're already producing like,
They're popping off.
yeah, so those are some type. We never tried them before, but we're going to be, trying them this year. So we're going to give some reviews on those. So some of those you can grow in an apartment in the containers. Some of those, if you have the space for a trellis or some type of trellis on your balcony in an apartment, you can grow those.
Just have it in a real sunny spot.
The next one are going to be onions. Now with onions, they have a long day onions, and then they have a short day onion. Now, Crystal, she was basically gives a good explanation about
What
this.
is her Crystal Strong?
Crystal family. I will put the links down below. I think she has two channels. One is the cooking one, and one is her gardening one. But she was saying that the onion long day ones are for the growers that's on the northern tier, because their hot days aren't as long and hot as our growing season. And the short days are better for the southerner states like Texas, Georgia, everyone around there. And you got your red ones, you got your yellow ones, your Georgia ones, your sweet onion ones. So there's different variety that you can grow from there if you're in the 8A hardiness zone. Can you think of anything else that I probably miss? Melons. You got your watermelons, your what is the just from Jadari or something like that. You got those type of melons.
Those little sweet melons.
What else you got?
The only thing about melons, and I actually opted out to grow any this year, is that they are pretty viney. I didn't feel like I had dedicated space for that for this year. Until we have a larger piece of property, I didn't really want to do watermelons.
Yeah, they will take up a lot of room unless you train them up well, but we just don't have the space for them. So I would not recommend any of those if you're in an apartment, but if you have the room, then go for it. You can even do honeydews if you have the space for it, cantaloupe, all of those delicious sweet melons. So that's that.
Oh, did we mention beans or peas?
Oh, yes. You can also start to grow beans. Now, there's two types of beans. There you have your pole beans, which you're going to definitely need a trellis on. And you have your bush beans. If you're in an apartment, those would be perfect for you if you love beans. They are great, and they will produce like crazy. And if you do bush beans, they don't last as long as what pole beans do, so you will have to plant those in succession. You can even do pole beans in succession as well, depending on how well you like eating beans. And then you also the same effect for your peas. You got your pole peas, and then you have your bush peas. And the same way with the peas, grow them in succession, because especially with the bush variety, you'll be able to grow those in apartments in your containers, and you'll be able to just eat off of those like crazy. If you saw our latest garden tour, I was snacking on them like hotcakes. Yeah. All right, next we're going to talk about herbs, and Mrs. Naked Gardener, that's her thing. So we're going to let her talk about what herb. You could basically grow almost any type of herb direct sow. For a first-time gardener, I would not suggest rosemary or lavender. And do not grow any cilantro, parsley around this time because they're more a cold hardy herb.
Unless you want to do it indoors.
Unless you want to do it indoor.
In a window.
Yeah. So what herbs would you?
Definitely basil. Basil is like my number one. It does best in the heat. It loves the heat. I love different varieties: sweet basil, Genevieve basil, mammoth basil, lettuce basil. Those are just some of the basils that I'm growing. Salvia, I became a fan of that last year because of the sweetness. Of that.
Oh my God, they're very sweet.
Very sweet. So I really want to dabble with that some more. I just discovered it last season and I only grew a little bit. So this year I'm growing more and I really just kind of want to experiment. Tarragon, Mexican tarragon that has kind of more of like a licorice taste. Kind of like bee balm as well. Remember we just tasted that. Bee balm is great, beautiful flowers, great for teas. Has a kind of a licorice taste as well. Lemon balm, I discovered last year how much I like that as also with making pesto. It's like when you use that making a pesto, it's like you don't have to use lemons. It has such a zesty flavor to it. And it's also good in teas. I'm just more of a sauce maker myself. Trying to think, sage. Sage is another one.
Yeah.
Sometimes that one can kind of be difficult to start. We've had some rough patches starting it. But once you get it going, like we have some that's been in the pot that it's in for 2 years and I just cut it down.
Yeah.
And it just keeps coming back. He was mentioning rosemary and lavender, kind of cautionary. We've had more success just buying a start and then just having a start. But I really am stubborn. I probably am going to try again next year from seed on those. I feel like I'm missing. Did I say tarragon already? I said Mexican tarragon, then regular tarragon.
And you said oregano, thyme.
Thyme. Yeah, those are good. Like I like being able to go out into my little kitchen herb garden beds and just grabbing those as we're cooking.
Now we do certain videos where we show you what you can grow either from indoors, outdoors, or direct sow. If you're interested in learning about those, we'll put a playlist above here. If you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you don't miss an upload. If you haven't done so already, also make sure you give us a thumbs up. And until the next video, let's grow together.